for attending this webinar. We will get started, and at this point, we would like to thank you for joining, and let's just go over through the quick opening slides. So Harold, can you switch to the next slide? Perfect. Very quick introduction, and then we will get right into the software. So this is presented by Smart Solutions International. And we have been a solution implementer for now over 25 years in the Caribbean and North America. We've been awarded Partner of the Year by Infor 3 years in a row. Extensive experience in the Caribbean, the US, and Canada. And we are a partner of Prophix, Infor, Blackline, and Tableau. So we really work around the financial office with the CFO, the controller, and the accountants to help find solutions to problems, modernize the process, and of course, deliver value to your organization. Who is Prophix? They are positioned as a visionary in the Gartner Magic Quadrant. They provide corporate performance management software, so financial planning and analysis. And the great thing about them is their ease of use, how easy it is to maintain the solution, and how flexible it is. So that's all the introduction I have. I will now pass it over to Harold, which will guide us through the demonstration. Thank you, Harold.
Thank you, Victor. And before we start, for everyone on the call, thank you for joining this webinar with us today. And Victor alluded to what we're going to be discussing today. Victor said that Prophix is a corporate performance management tool, right? But what does that really mean? Right, Prophix is a corporate performance management tool, and it's exactly what Victor explained. We help you with your reporting and analytics, but we also go a lot further than that. Within Prophix, within this unified solution, we also have a budgeting and planning tool. We have workflow, security, and automation to make sure that the users can only see what data that they have access to. But not only that, we're also a financial consolidation and close tool. And then speaking more specifically on these key items that Prophix does, we outlined a few of the areas that we cover. We're not going to go through everything that we cover today, but for purposes of this webinar, we're going to actually look at how we budget and plan within Prophix. And looking further than actually budgeting and planning, how do we pivot and reforecast based on disruption in our business? Right. So I've included everything that a CPM platform will give you, but for today's purposes, we're going to be handling the left-hand side of the screen that you see here today, and that includes expense planning, looking at our personnel planning, and then we're also going to wrap in our workflow, because everything in Prophix is wrapped with a workflow. So there's no longer a need to distribute out different templates or Excel spreadsheets to your end users by email, which often leads to version control issues and security issues. By having everything in Prophix and unifying it within Prophix, we make sure that users only have access to the information that they should see. I'm not going to cover too much on reporting and financial consolidations, but during the demonstration, you're also going to see our virtual financial analyst. And this is really the direction that Prophix is going as a CPM tool, right? Oftentimes, when we're in boardroom meetings and there's a question related to why is there a variance for Q1? Well, with the virtual financial analyst and really the building blocks to artificial intelligence and machine learning, what we're doing is we're helping you answer those questions immediately. And you'll see that during the demonstration. So without further ado, I'm going to enter in Prophix now. And if any of you guys have questions throughout the demonstration, please feel free to include them in the chat box, and we'll try to get to it in this webinar. But in the case that we don't, Victor or myself will follow up with you just to make sure that we cover all bases and to make sure that your questions are addressed. So what you're looking at now is a Prophix dashboard. Now, before I talk about the Prophix dashboards and the key metrics and KPIs that you see today, Victor has asked me to do this webinar for you. And the topic of this webinar is really how do we pivot and how do we shift the direction of our budgets and forecast in a quick way that minimizes the maintenance and minimizes the amount of effort from our finance and accounting team, right? My job at Prophix is that I'm a solutions engineer. And what that means as a solutions engineer is my typical day looks like talking to prospects about different pain points that they're having related to their budget or reforecasting process. And 90% of the time, what we hear is that budgets and forecasts live in Excel, right? I know different ERP systems aren't the best at doing budgeting and budgeting and planning. So what typically happens is that finance and accounting folks do a data dump from their ERP to Excel, and then distribute that out via email. And what happens with that is over time, you realize that there's going to be version control issues. People will have access to the things that we sent mistakenly, just an honest mistake sometimes. And furthermore, what this ultimately leads to is just late nights and confusion in trying to aggregate all the budget information, consolidate that so that the board or the management can approve it. Now, with Prophix, we try to streamline and automate all of that. So right now, the first thing you see when I log into Prophix in my web browser is a dashboard. And this dashboard presents you with various metrics, KPIs, favorites, um, that you have access to right on your dashboard. Now, also, in addition to that, I'm also presented with tasks, right? And my tasks are really controlled by your Prophix workflow. Your Prophix workflow replaces the need for you to distribute out emails to your various end users. And at the end of the day, this is what it looks like, right? We want to structure all of our tasks within Prophix and let Prophix do the hard work of distributing out these templates to the various end users. But not only that, not only distribute out this template, but also collect all of the information, right? Collecting all of the information is something that finance and accounting folks do, but doesn't really add much value to their job. And I'm sure if you ask finance folks if they enjoy collecting budgets and aggregating budgets, they'll probably tell you no. But commonly, this is something they have to do because it's part of the business process. Now, with Prophix and as an administrator in Prophix, you're actually looking at a workflow that we've developed, right? And this is the console for an administrator to come into Prophix, really understand at any point in the budget where they're at. So if I'm looking at this workflow today, what I can see is we prepared the budget baseline, and now we're just waiting for the different departments or business units uh, to start their budgets. So we're at the initial phases, but I can go into this workflow panel and look at it every day just to see how we're progressing in our budget and if there may be a delay. Okay.
Hey, Harold, how about I send a poll to the audience and have them participate? Let them tell us a bit of what they do right now for budgeting.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So please just click and let us
So the
know what you use.
so the question that's presented right now is what tools do you use for your current budgeting and planning process? And I'll just give a minute for everyone to answer.
All right. I'll pass it back to you now, Harold.
Great. So thank you guys for all answering that poll question. And right now, just to recap, we looked at the workflow, but what really happens when Prophix initiates a workflow? So a couple things happen here. So once we're done defining who's entering the workflow task for us, Prophix will then send an email, but users can also access their workflow task within their dashboard. Now, I'm presented with an OpEx planning template or an OpEx planning task that's due December 29th. So that's also something we define just so that end users get visibility into the process. Right, and I can simply click on this OpEx planning template or a task, and Prophix will present me with an operating expense budgeting template. And what you're seeing here is my different GL accounts in my rows. I have my budget months in my columns. But with Prophix, I've also included an annualized budget for next year. So while we're preparing the budget for this year, we can start thinking about next year. Now, in terms of helping our end users define their budgets, we've also included a column of information for our prior year actuals, as well as our 9x3 forecast. And again, it's all about giving the users the correct information so that they can help budget accurately based on the different seasonality of your business. Okay. Now, reports and Prophix are designed to be used by multiple individuals, right? So within this one report, if I expand my pages, what you can see is that I have access to a couple filters. I have access to my departmental filter. And because I'm logged in as Tony Stark actually has access to 3 departments, right? And if I show you this in a more clean view, Tony Stark has access to product marketing, content, and so on. But he also wants to be able to see my total marketing budget, right? Tony wants to see total marketing. Now, typically, how this would work is that someone would come in, enter in their budget for product marketing, content marketing, and field marketing. They would send it back to the finance team, and the finance team would aggregate all of this information up so that we can see total marketing. With Prophix, this is all automated because we're using and we're leveraging a centralized model. So we actually define the different roll-ups that we want to see. So if I want to see total marketing, Prophix automatically aggregates this information up for us. So again, we're minimizing the amount of non-value added work that we do so that we have time for more analysis and more value added work within the business. So if I come back to product marketing, users interact with this template in Prophix as they would in Excel, right? So users can come into Prophix, enter in a number for trade shows, right? Or they can leverage Prophix's powerful spreading capabilities in order to help them do their budget. Now, I've actually pre-populated this template with my last period's forecast so that I have a baseline for my different users to start budgeting, and they only have to worry about fine-tuning some of these numbers. But Prophix also supports zero-based budgeting as well. So if you want to send them a blank template, that's absolutely something you can do. Okay. Now we talked a little bit about spreading, and I pre-populated my marketing cost with my prior period forecast. So what I can simply do now is say, we're actually going to expect more for our marketing costs. Let's actually increase this to 8,500. And because we're entering in information at a total level, Prophix prompts us, and it says the total, which is 2021, is actually comprised of multiple months, so January to December. How would you like to spread this 8,500? Prophix gives us multiple options. We can spread evenly, we can spread based on the existing information, so the forecast, or you can actually pick and choose how you want to spread this information. So if we want to spread it based on our net income, well, that's certainly something you can click on, and Prophix presents you with the chart of account so that you can select net income. More often than not, different end users actually use spread or statistical accounts to actually do their spreading within Prophix. And that may look like something like headcount, FTE, or square footage. And again, Prophix is a point and click solution. So your end users only have to worry about what they want to spread by and let Prophix do all the work of actually doing the spread for us. Okay. Now I'm going to spread based on existing data. So spreading based on my forecast, and Prophix will automatically track these numbers for us. Now, in terms of accountability, by changing a number within Prophix, Prophix also maintains an audit log. And what I mean by that is different users will be interacting with this template. And at any time, we can go back into any number and look at what's changed, right? And by doing so, this holds our different end users accountable. So Tony Stark is accountable to the 6,000 he's inputted in his budget template, right? We track that so that we have visibility into the process, and also the accountability from the end users when they enter in their budgets are more heightened with the auditability. Okay. Now, we talked about how we prepare a budget in Prophix, but the point of this session was not to build the budget. I'm sure we all have prepared our budgets from September. Some of us are preparing our budgets today for next year. But the point of this webinar is really how do we deal with disruption? And given current times, how do we shift our budgets quickly? And how do we take our current budget and change it to reflect it in a forecast, right?
Hey, Harold, I have a question poll for the audience. If you don't mind, I'll launch it and see if this one here works better.
Sure, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, so the question is, how long does it take for you to complete your budget process? And I'll just give another minute for people to respond.
Okay, about a third have voted. We'll give you one more second to choose your answer. I'll close the poll.
Okay.
All right, so a third of the folks said 90 days or more.
90 days or more. Well, the first thing I want to say is I sympathize for you because I know what it's like to go through a budget cycle because I was once a consultant. But let's actually look at how Prophix can help you. So 3 months into the year, we have our actual information. But for the remaining 9 months, we need to reforecast. Commonly, we'll call that a Q1 reforecast. And to access my template, my Q1 reforecast, I can simply navigate to my favorites. And Prophix will present me with a very familiar template that you saw earlier, which was my operating expense reforecast. But the big difference here is not the ability to enter in information. You can do that in Excel. The beauty of Prophix is it actually ports over all of the actual information from your ERP, so Infor or other data sources you may have. And we call that in Prophix a closed accounting period. So the first 3 months of the year, this is actual information. This has flown over from Infor or different ERPs you may have. And the remaining 9 months of the forecast are open periods, which means that we can actually change this information. Right? Now, when we look at Prophix here and we look at the spreading capabilities, well, the spreading still applies to this reforecast. But what actually happens now is if I enter in a different number, let's say the 8,500, Prophix will understand what's actually happened for the first 3 months of the year. So it'll take that 8,500, subtract it by what's actually happened in the first 3 months, and spread it to the open periods, depending on how we want to, depending on the logic we define for the spread. Okay, so I can simply go in and again, I'll do spread evenly this time. And Prophix will take the difference between the 8,500 and what's actually happened and spread the remainder to the remaining months. Now, not only that, users can then comment on why an amount is the way it is. So Tony Stark can go in, add a comment, and specifically say, spread evenly due to XYZ. Now, you might be thinking, this comment may look a lot like Excel, and comments in Prophix are actually a lot more powerful than in Excel, in that comments in Prophix always follow the data point around so that you never lose track of any justification or clarification, and you aren't having to hunt after certain people as to why there's a certain variance. So to demonstrate that, from any report within Prophix, we can access an ad hoc view. So we can analyze this information further. right? And this ad hoc view allows us to slice and dice the information. But the information you saw in the report and the information you see in this view are identical. But this is what this demonstrates, that comments actually follow the data point, so that if we're doing variance analysis on our profit and loss statement for next year, well, this will actually follow the data point so that we don't, again, have to chase people for the information. Okay. Now, keeping on the topic of the webinar, which is actually shifting the business. So as you've seen already, we've prepared a budget. You looked at a 3x9 forecast, but things are changing rapidly. So what are we doing to respond to this change? So again, if I navigate to the left-hand side of the screen and I access my different filters, well, I still have access to the departments that my administrator has given me access to. But I want to point out the version. Within this single report, we can incorporate multiple forecast versions. And simply put, what that does is this means that we don't have to maintain multiple Excel spreadsheets and tabs, which often leads to broken links, references, and ultimately misstatements in information. Right? So within Prophix, we can leverage one report and have multiple versions of information. So commonly what we see is a 3x9 forecast, a 6x6 forecast, a 9x3 forecast, and so on. But because of the rapid changing times, we actually want to change the first iteration of our forecast, right? And I can look at my 3x9 forecast version 2. And within this report, what you'll see is I have all my actuals. The actuals haven't changed. But now my version 2 information has no information related to the forecast. And I can send my end users this report, and they can enter in their reforecast. But we can leverage Prophix's AI and machine learning tools to help us populate this instantly. To demonstrate this, what I'll do is I'll actually speak to Prophix. Okay. So I'm going to navigate up top to the top right-hand corner. Run, populate, reforecast.
There are too many matches. Please be more specific.
Okay. Run, populate, forecast.
Found multiple processes. Which one would you like to use?
And I'm just going to click on one. And what Prophix does is it automatically understands that we want to copy over the forecast so that we can make changes. But I've actually done something else. I told Prophix from the report to run the populate forecast, but behind the scenes, I've actually told Prophix to adjust certain variables, to increase some accounts by 5%, decrease other accounts by 3%. And what this does is it actually helps me create forecasts on the fly, create multiple scenarios on the fly, so that we can give our management team more direction or more options in terms of how our business is trending and really how our business, which direction our business is going. So by simply
Hey, Harold,
yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I have a poll here. I just want to know from the audience if they're able to run some scenarios.
Sure.
I'd be curious to find out if you
Yeah,
can just.
that's the perfect segue. And the question is, are you able to run what if scenarios with your current solution or current setup?
All right, some people are answering. Okay, I'll just close the poll at this point and share the results. So I think the audience, we only had a third of the people vote, but basically, no, they're not able to run scenarios.
Yeah, and just to address that, that's pretty interesting. So, are you able to run what if scenarios given your current setup? And the majority of the answers were no. Right. And the next question I usually ask is why? And the typical answers that we see is we don't have enough time. We have to prepare financial statements after we close. And again, leveraging any CPM tool, not just Prophix, will allow you to do this without having additional headcount. Let's actually leverage some of the technology that's meant to do this, right? And I haven't actually reforecasted because we put up the poll, but almost instantly, Prophix prepares a version 2 forecast with the different variables that we have applied to the different accounts, like advertising, trade shows, and so on. And I can flip to version 3 as well. But to summarize, Prophix supports virtually an unlimited number of versions and scenarios. So we can do multiple versions. For demonstrative purposes today, I kept it at 3, but I think everyone on the call should get the point in how Prophix helps you do what-if scenario planning. Okay. Now, we prepared our 3x9 forecast, we prepared our budget, but what actually happens now is that we need to report on these numbers based on our actuals. Right, and Prophix is not only a budgeting and planning tool. I think Victor mentioned it already. It also helps you report. And how we help you report is we actually integrate or connect to the different data sources that you may have. So in this case, it may be Infor, and we help you come up with financial statements like the one you'll see today. Right, and this integrated financial statements really consolidates the 3 financial statements that any accounting team may be looking at on a month-by-month basis. Right? But Prophix enables different end users to really get to the numbers that they want to see. So if I'm looking at the income statement and I want to understand it further, I can simply right-click on any number in the income statement, and Prophix will present me with a more detailed view in terms of my income statement. Right? And the budget that we were preparing earlier and the forecast we were preparing earlier make its way into this statement because Prophix is an integrated model. It's a tightly integrated model so that we don't have to do work twice, right? That's the point of having a CPM tool is we want to minimize the amount of work that we have to do. And at the end of the day, an end user interacting with this report can simply go into the report, look at any variances that they may have, and right on the face of the financial statement, they can make justifications or clarifications as to why there was a variance. Okay. And at the end of the day, if we want to distribute this out to various end users, well, what we can do is actually download it in Excel or PDF format and send it to them, or we can let Prophix automate the distribution once we've actually closed out the period. Okay. Victor, did you have any questions so far? Is everyone following along?
So far, so good. There are no questions from the group. We are reaching our 2:30 end time. I would like to say there are 2 handouts in the webinar window. Some interesting graphics and data points that you can use. We will distribute this presentation to the folks that attended, and you will also get an email from us if you wanted to get into a deeper dive into the Prophix solution with a customized demo for yourself.
Absolutely. And one point I'd like to add is we didn't go through payroll planning today just because of limited time. But again, if anyone is interested in seeing it, just please reach out to Victor. We'd be happy to show you and really help you address some of the pain points that you may have.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Harold, for this quick introduction to Prophix. I'm sure we could have gone on for the whole afternoon because it's a very deep application. I appreciate the time. But like I said, we'll invite and get in contact with the audience that participated, and we will get into more personalized deep demos.
Okay.
I'd like to thank everybody who joined. Stay safe while you work from home. Harold, same to you. Thank you very much for all your time. And
thank you, Victor.
We will talk soon. Thanks, everybody.